Hey there and welcome back. In today's video we will be talking all about solo dungeons and how you can make millions of silver with a cheap but very strong build. I've talked about this build in the past, so we will quickly go over the build. I will talk about which solo dungeons I recommend doing, the best way to get to your dungeon, and which items and abilities you will need for the build. I will also go over a basic rotation for you to follow. Now before we get into the video, make sure to follow me over on kick.com/Donnie956 where I stream every day except for Saturdays from 11 a.m. UTC to 1600 UTC. We have mount giveaways from T6 to Tier 8 every 30 minutes. I also give away premium at least twice a week. This month we also have a Mammoth Calf giveaway happening, so make sure to join the Discord and become part of the community. Now without further ado, let's get into the build breakdown. As we all know, solo dungeons have been frowned upon for some time. It seems that the loot has gotten worse every single time. Almost as bad, or if not as bad, as corrupted dungeons. In general, all solo content seems to have been forgotten. But I think we found something. I think SBI has gone in and done something, because as of late, I've gone back in and consistently been making millions of silver from solo dungeons with very little risk. Now there is some risk to this since you'll need to do this in the black zone, but don't let that scare you. I have the perfect build that will ensure that you don't go broke doing this. The maps I'm talking about are tier 8.1 maps. The price of these maps range anywhere from 135,000 to 150,000 silver, which isn't too bad when you compare the rewards and the price jump compared to maps 8.2 and 8.3. Now let's talk some tips and tricks that are going to help you survive out in the black zone. I know some of you might have heard horror stories of the black zone, but with these tips I'm more than confident that you will see how easy it is to do this. Now I do recommend using these maps out of your Royal City's black portal. This will allow you to use the stealth mechanic before exiting, making sure that you aren't spotted by any gankers or dungeon divers. Once you make it to your solo dungeon, I do recommend taking a few seconds to scout the area surrounding your dungeon. You'll want to make sure that there isn't anyone close enough to see you enter. The last thing you want to do is to deal with dungeon divers. Now, once you are in the dungeon, I do recommend hitting the escape or starting your logout timer. The reason for this is that you get an accurate time of how long you've been in the dungeon. It takes 90 seconds for your solo dungeon entrance to disappear. This is a great way to safely continue through your solo dungeon knowing that you will not get dove. One other tip I recommend is keeping an eye out for is your shield debuff. When you enter your dungeon, you will enter with a shield. If you do not move, this shield will last longer. Now, in the event that there is someone in your dungeon, don't panic. If they start attacking you, wait a moment and then zone back out and mount up safely. Now, let's say someone enters your dungeon about 20 seconds after you. You won't have a shield to protect you anymore, and you might still have the debuff from receiving a new shield. So instead of just zoning out and getting killed by the person waiting outside, try to kite around without attacking your enemy. Once the shield debuff expires, you can safely zone out and receive a new shield. This will also allow you to mount up and get away from the dungeon divers. Worst case scenario is you get caught by some dungeon divers and get killed. It isn't the end of the world. The main reason being the 8.1 dungeon map isn't too expensive, and the build I'm recommending is worth around 50,000 silver. Now that we know which maps to buy and how to survive getting into and starting your dungeon, let's break down the build that is going to easily clear these solo dungeons and make us millions of silver. First things first, I recommend at least 1100 IP for tier 8.1 solo dungeons. I do have quite a bit of mastery and spec in this build, so a 4.1 excellent quality set is more than enough for me. If you're lacking some mastery and spec, try getting a 4.2 or 5.1 set, whichever is cheaper. Now, clearing the dungeon will take you anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes, including the downtime at the start of your dungeon. Some of you might think that it's too slow, but keep in mind that we aren't out here trying to speedrun dungeons. We are out here making millions of silver at the lowest risk possible. For your helmet, you will take Mage Cowl. I really enjoy Mage Cowl in solo group dungeons. Your D ability, Fire Breath, will do a cone of fire in front of you and do damage to all enemies it hits over 3 seconds. The more area of effect damage that you have, the faster you will clear your dungeon. Now, your passive is aggression. It will also increase your damage by 3.5%. Let's talk about your armor piece. The armor piece you will go with is Mercenary Jacket for your R ability Bloodlust, which provides you with sustain as you auto attack. This ability is huge and can be used in an emergency if you find yourself on cooldowns. I usually use this ability in boss fights or when I'm close to getting knocked. Now, the cooldown is quite long, so make sure that you use it as a last resort and try to depend on your other cooldowns. Your passive will be Balanced Mind for extra damage and healing. The weapon you will take is Druidic Staff. Druidic Staff is king. It does a lot of damage and provides you with one of the best solo heals in the game. For your Q, you will take Thorn Growth. Thorn Growth paired with your auto attacks will be your main source of damage. Now, Thorn Growth will provide you Thorn charges that stack up to 5 times on your mobs, slowing them down and doing damage. When you auto attack the mob with Thorn charges, it will pop the charges and cause extra damage. It is very important that you are always auto-attacking. Now, your W can vary depending on your IP. If you are at 1100 IP, I believe you can take Bramble Seeds for the interrupts and extra damage. Remember, the more AoE damage that you have, the faster that you will kill the mobs. If you find yourself having issues on bosses or empowered mobs, go with Protection of Nature. This will give you a small heal and increase your damage resistance. You will also increase any healing you receive by 35% for 6 seconds. This is great to pair up with your Merc Jacket's Bloodlust and even your Druidic Staff's E, which is Spiritual Seed. Now, Spiritual Seed will provide you with a large heal after 3 seconds. This healing ability makes Druidic very strong, as it will erase a lot of the in-between damage that you will take while fighting packs of mobs or bosses. Make sure to time this wisely so you are not stuck on cooldown when you truly need it. For your passive, I recommend taking Adrenaline Driven Charity for the extra healing cast, but if you find yourself running out of energy, switch over to Energetic for the restored energy on auto attacks. Now, for your offhand, you will go with Torch. Torch works perfectly with your Bloodlust ability and Druidic Staff's Thorn charges, as it will increase your attack speed and cooldown modifier. This will allow for faster heals and more damage output. For your boots, I recommend any plate boots, whichever you have the most spec in. You will go with Rejuvenating Sprint for your F ability, allowing you to sustain more. It'll also provide mobility to dodge and move through the solo dungeons. Now, your cape doesn't really matter as long as you wear one for your energy regen. I go with the basic 4.1 cape. Now, for your consumables, make sure to take tier 7 roast pork. This will give you some healing over time as you do damage. For your potions, I like to take poison potions. This helps burn down bosses. Now, let's talk about the rotation. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You will start by dropping your Thorns Growth on top of the pack of mobs, followed by Bramble Seeds to maximize your damage. Once the mobs are stacked up, use your Mage Cowl's Fire Breath to apply the AoE damage. You will then auto attack popping Thorn charges, which will increase your damage. You will rinse and repeat. When fighting bosses, you can open up with your Poison Potion and begin your normal rotation. If you find yourself taking damage, use Spiritual Seed on yourself, and if need be, use Bloodlust. I recommend using the Protection of Nature on bosses and pairing it up with your healing abilities. Like I mentioned, this rotation is very simple and you should have no issue with it. I think it's time we give solo dungeons a second chance, especially tier 8.1 dungeons. They really feel like we hit the sweet spot. There is very little investment and almost no risk due to a cheap build and a great chance for a large reward. For transparency reasons, these 2 dungeons that we see here I invested a total of 140,000 silver for each map and 50,000 silver on the set. That is a grand total of 330,000 silver, and I made over 1.7 million silver. That is a total profit of 1.4 million. I am more than confident that you'll have similar results. Now, nothing is guaranteed in Albion Online, so your results can vary. However, solo dungeons get a bad rap for a good reason, but 8.1 maps might change your thought on that. I hope you enjoyed this video and gained some value from it. If you want to see more Albion Online content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments how your experience was with these 8.1 solo dungeon maps. If you want to catch me live, make sure to follow me on kick.com/Donnie956. Make sure to stop by and say hello.